think that's a very important point. I started policing in 1966. I go back a little bit further than you. My training for the first 3 days of my training course was in common law. A cop today won't even know the term, just to show you the difference. After my training in common law, we learnt that we had 4 major acts that actually, if you like, went on the back of common law. If you now look at the policies that a police officer, I was a constable, that a police officer has to cater for, it's a whole different ballgame. The police constable that I was locally appointed by a local police authority with a home office that had a little bit of input. But when I remember my chief that promoted me a couple of times, he was very much an autonomous person who dealt at a local level, would never have acceded to policies from something like an unelected body of the WHO, of the United Nations. They wouldn't think of it. They fought wars to make sure that didn't happen. And I remember my oath. My oath was to protect life and property. To protect life and property. To prevent and detect crime. Prevent was the first one. And to uphold the peace. That was what I joined for. But boy, did I get a shot down the road, eventually ending up in counter-terrorism and seeing that the worst terrorists were actually the private permanent secretaries who pulled the puppet strings of our so-called governments. That's where, and that's what we've denigrated into. I had the fortune of actually being in a parade room when the sergeant walked in with a whole packet of fixed penalty tickets and said, "You're going to be issuing those because of those dreadful lines that have been put down in the streets of Brighton where I was policing." We said, "On your bike, not us," because we are the people and the people's representatives. They had to employ traffic wardens to do that because we refused to.
I think we're now getting to a point where we're getting ready to close. I think we've had quite a day of it, really, haven't we, overall? It's nice to see that there's been a full...
Sorry, Mike.
Yeah, sure.
Sorry, can I just add one thing off the back of that?
Yeah, sure.
Sorry, everybody's having a bit, we are running out of time here, but we were just, he mentioned about common law, and I had there's a thing with common law. We all talk about common law, and we all hear about it. You have to be very careful because there's a legal term called common law as well, which sits under legalese. So I've seen people in court, friends of mine, going, "Oh, I'm going to use common law." Well, if you're ever in a court, which you really shouldn't be because it's a dead entity place, they will basically, if you use the term common law, they can use the legal term for common law. So it's very difficult. However, and I witnessed this firsthand, I was at, some people recognised me earlier. I went out on a march on the 14th of March 2021, I think it was, or 2021, with the Mum's Army in Oxford. And they cornered me, and I didn't know anything about the law back then. 2 of my friends that were with me, big strapping blokes, way bigger than me, and one was a heavyweight boxer, bless his heart, came over. They knew their common law inside out. Now, if you get pulled over by a police officer, this police officer doesn't know really about common law or law. They're not taught that. However, there is a way around this, and I can see that people are recording this, so you can go over this again. If a police officer comes up to you and wants your attention, remember they work for you. So first of all, put your hat on, put your gloves on, and address me correctly. And how can I help you? Where's the crime? Before they do anything, you need to identify who they are. Always record them because they're always recording you. So pull your phone out and they'll be on their best behaviour. You want to know what their badge number is. You ask for their badge number. You film their badge number. You ask for their name. They will give you their name. You ask them, what station are you working out of? They'll give you the station they work out of. And then you ask them, what station are you working out of today? Because during lockdowns, we had police constables, officers coming up from Cornwall and pulling people over in Oxford. So where are you working from today? After those 4 facts, your badge number, your name, the station you work out of, and the station you're working out of today, you ask them to produce their warrant card. They have to produce their warrant card. Am I incorrect there, or I'm on the note, right? When they produce their warrant card, they are now in common law. And at that point there, you tell them, I'd just like to let you know that you have now identified yourself as a police constable. If you now come at me with any legislation or policy, you are impersonating an officer. And that has a very long sentence and a big fine attached to it. You can't impersonate an officer. You just identified yourself as a constable. So now you're dealing with common law. And they can't enforce policies upon you at that point there. And that it's a very simple way that you have to take them there. The warrant card is essential. Make them produce it. And they don't do anything until you've identified them, because they're just a man dressed up to that point. So it's just a small point.
Can I just ask about the warrant card? We've been in a situation where there could be 4 of them there, but only one has a warrant card and the others don't. So what does that mean? If they don't have a warrant card, they have no right to say anything to you? And if the one that does have a warrant card is only under common law?
Well, if you're enforcing policies and legals, then,
Yeah.
then you shouldn't be approaching a living man or woman. I mean, I would say that's about right.
Yep.
I'm not too sure.
No, Alex is spot on, so absolutely spot on, so it's fine. So just to say that, because we had that situation in the unlawful lockdown, all I used to do was ask them to produce their warrant oath card. Now, if they refused, and that it's very important about recording them, if they're dressed up as police and they refuse to identify themselves, that is the second highest crime, malfeasance. So why the roadblocks in Ireland, when I did the 10-minute video that came out on Sunday, the 14th of March, all the roadblocks were there, but the 14,000 people paid as police, none of them turned up for work, and the roadblocks disappeared the next day and forever, is that if you dress up as police and you don't produce your warrant oath card, it's 20 years in prison for them. And if they produce their warrant oath card, you then can find their name in law, and in their oath they said they would defend our rights of freedom of travel. That's their job. So if they fail to do their job, then it's the second highest criminal offence for them to dress up as police and not defend our rights. And that's why the people, the 14,000 police, so it's just me, you know, that video was just me, right? No court, no nothing, saying, because all you need is a few people to know the law to stop them. And then we have to hold them accountable. So, yeah, so not producing your warrant oath card is the highest criminal offence of someone dressed up as a police constable.
And I'll just add a little bit to that, in so much that in the military you have rules of engagement. The police also have rules of engagement called the 4 E's. So when they say they don't have to explain, they do, actually. They engage, they explain, they encourage, and then they enforce if that is the last option. So that you have something called the 4 E's. It's worth looking at those, because those are actually their rules of engagement. I think we come to a point of watershed. What do you reckon?